Hey guys, just a friendly reminder that there will be tons of major spoilers ahead, so if you haven't finished the game yet, come back when you're ready to find out more. If you're here for a quick review, well, Final Fantasy was great. Just play it. Whether you're a fan of the franchise or just craving a deep RPG to sink your teeth in, this is it. That is literally my definitive review. So let's speak spoilers. So I've finally gotten around to finishing Final Fantasy 15, and I have to say that this game was great. Tragic and mentally frustrating, but great. The game lets you explore quite extensively, building up your questions, and the last few chapters of the game that answer them, it gets very heavy. I mean, sure, the game starts off with your home invaded and your dad murdered, but how this game ends? The beginning pales in comparison. So there's two major scenes to discuss here today. First is the end of chapter 13, where we find out who Ardyn is and the fate of the Chosen King. Next is split into two smaller parts, the campfire scene and the wedding scene. So let's discuss the common theories floating around and what I think is going on in these ambiguous ending scenes. So our first scene is about Ardyn and the Chosen King. Ardyn Izunia was never an Izunia. He was born Ardyn Lucis Chellam, I pronounce it that way because I played it in Japanese, who was a king of Lucis ages ago. And he had the power to exorcise demons from the humans that have turned. In return, though, the darkness needed a place to go, so Ardyn volunteered himself as their vessel. But someone who really wanted his throne at that point, who wasn't even deemed worthy yet, gave Ardyn a bad reputation and demonized him from society. To make it all worse, when Ardyn's death came around, even the crystal wouldn't allow him to ascend due to the gravity of his taint. Thus, Ardyn the Accursed lived a makeshift immortal life filled with vengeance for the Lucis Chellam blood, and an overly saturated darkness within him. Now, the Chosen King Noctis was to cleanse the Accursed by absorbing all the Lucian King's light and sacrifice himself to finally bring true light and banish the darkness for good. The 10 years Noct spent in the crystal was to merely prime the ring to receive the immense power of the kings of Lucis. In the end, it was fairly straightforward. Noctis summons the kings from the throne, accepts them into the ring, and is killed by his father to pass on to the afterlife where Ardyn was waiting to be cleansed. That was that. It was just a little convoluted since I was still so furious at chapter 13 to really care. I mean, let's face it, that chapter was unnecessarily long and... Anyway, the campfire scene. Now, this scene was obvious to me, but not as obvious as it appeared when I was looking around for other people's ideas. And so for discussion's sake, let me enumerate the common theories floating around. First, this is the afterlife. Noct never said bye, and this is psychologically where Noct bids his friends farewell. Second, this is a flashback of the last campfire before insomnia, and since Noct isn't wearing his ring, this is the afterlife. But let me show you guys something. To me, this was quite obvious. This was a flashback to their last camp together. Simple as that. We see that leaving Hammerhead, the group wears their new uniforms with a cloak and jackets. And during the camp scene, they remove it all. If you wait and watch when they're eating, while the EXP is being tallied, you'll see that Noct is not wearing his ring here. Furthermore, when they walk into insomnia, lastly, when Noct asked for one picture, the trio was sad, but they didn't ask why. And before the final scene, during the "Walk tall, my friends," Noct says farewell there too. And these are the points why this scene was quite obvious to me. Nothing psychological or sadistic as Noctis talking to his imaginary friends in death. So moving on, is the final scene, the wedding scene, the marriage scene. Now, the wedding scene was just so out of place, I have a few theories of my own. And as tradition, let's see what others have come up with. First, this is a what-if scenario. And second, it's just their ascension to heaven. It's their afterlife. Well, I believe this to be more of their ascension than anything else. The world is renewed and saved, darkness is banished, everything starts anew. The wedding is simply their happily ever afterlife. Simple, and the devs' way to just put a happy ending to a tragic story. My more difficult theory is that they were sent back into the world as a result of passing some sort of test for the Chosen King. This can be proven by appearing spontaneously on the throne after the camera climbs up the stairs to focus at the picture. This could also be the answer to where everybody was during the scene leading up to Noct and Luna appearing. The rest could have easily appeared at that same moment as well. This theory, though, doesn't help any sequel and is more speculative meaning to the end. And if you thought that was kind of what? An even more difficult theory is that this is an ending to a different timeline. When the credits rolled, we heard the entire broken down car scene from the beginning of the game. What does that mean? It means that the game started all over from that point on without Ardyn and the darkness, and the main antagonist is something else entirely. So in the end, Noct and Luna still got married. Finn. But this just sounds plain out boring. I'm sure starting the game with the end and ending it with the start has its meaning, but I guess we'll just have to see. Last but not least, this could turn into a similar scenario to Final Fantasy XIII. Lightning sacrifices herself into a crystal to save the world, and in Final Fantasy XIII too, she shows up and becomes the champion of the goddess of Valhalla. Then lightning returns. So it's easily possible that Final Fantasy XV may share the same fate. The franchise is no stranger to tragic endings, but this is by no means a bad story or a result of awful writing. It's just sad and tragic, but it was a great game altogether. Now, a few things that remain in my mind after looking deeper into this game, which spawned into about 6 decently sized questions. Number 1, when Noctis dies, did the trio lose their powers? For 10 years they've had their own weapons, right? Meaning they could have no need for Noct's powers after all. Also, think back to chapter 13 and the end of the game, and the physical sword of the Father. Noct didn't have powers at all, but he still had control over the Sword of the Father, which he physically picked up at that specific moment. Anyway, so number 2. So did the trio die too? Did everyone die? Well, we see them in the afterlife. So, meh. Okay, so number 3. Is it just me, or when Noct died, he or the ring exploded? Did it destroy the world, or just what was around him? World purification, maybe? Or just a metaphorical explosion? Number 4. Why did the game start with the end and end with the start? Is it a cycle of some sort? Does that mean anything in the long run? We just have to wait and see. Number 5. What was Regis's narration in the end? Was that just something like I'm watching you from far away and this is just my congratulatory speech of you guys having your own happily ever afterlife? Well, either way, like I said, this last scene was quite out of place. Lastly, this is more lore than anything else, but I don't think I picked up on what really happened. So, was Shiva's dead body and Galea just one of her sisters? Because we all know that Gentiana was Shiva, and in the end, when she helped Noct out, there was a few of them. So, what was that giant Shiva body in Galea that's causing all the snowstorms. Huh. Well, anyway, I'm sure it's somewhere out there and I just haven't figured it out yet.
俺お前らのこと好きだわ。
So hopefully, the DLC will shed some light onto this ending and answer some of these questions. Chances are they could easily cut into the 10-year gap, the Altissia separation, or what happened after the end when Noctis died. So, yay or nay to the sequel, guys? Chime into the discussion with your thoughts and theories, or whether you support or refute my interpretations. Whatever it is, bring it over to the discussion. Stay tuned for a group discussion podcast with the rest of the tnhU gamers in the near future to discuss the ending from 3 different perspectives. So until then, tnhU signing out.